Perhaps more so than in any election I can remember in races across the country, and in particular in Senate races, the Democratic Party has a number of choices to choose between. And in many of these cases, they have strong progressives that can be a stark contrast to the Republicans that they're challenging, perhaps a big stimulus to new voters entering come election day. But will the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee back any of these progressive challengers, or will they stick with their strategy? Joining us now to break down the evidence so far is politics reporter for The Intercept, Kayla Lacey. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Very glad to have you here. I enjoyed your recent article on The Intercept about this topic, and it turns out that they are weighing in. What sort of candidates are they supporting?
So far this cycle, the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee has endorsed 3 candidates who are former Republicans. They've also endorsed another candidate in North Carolina who is not a former Republican, but is very much the typical kind of moderate centrist, former litigation attorney, former military veteran, who has loaned his own campaign $200,000.
Yeah, it's just interesting. I know that some of this is earlier, but it was just big news in the past week that Jeff Van Drew formally switched over to the Republican Party, which to me is sort of a warning that, like, hey, let's make sure that the people that we're putting tons of resources in actually support the party. So anyway, let's talk about a couple of these individual cases that they're going. So Mitch McConnell is running for re-election. That's probably one of the highest profile races. Can you tell us a little bit about the person who's challenging Mitch?
Yeah, so Amy McGrath ran last year in a House race and lost pretty badly, but the DSCC thought they would give her another shot to beat Mitch McConnell, who is arguably their largest opponent in 2020. She's already had a couple of pretty serious blunders so far in the campaign, one of which was basically saying that McConnell was standing in the way of Trump's agenda. So the party has been trying to kind of clean that up a little bit. And there was some talk about a popular radio host in Kentucky potentially running against her. He hasn't, said that he's going to run, but there is someone who's running to her left. Pretty clear that DSCC is not going to back that person. But, Amy McGrath is the kind of candidate who put out a campaign video that showed the US military bombing people, but didn't have any policy positions. So that's the kind of people that the party thinks has the best chance of winning places like Kentucky.
So I feel in the last few campaign cycles, we've seen this strategy of putting centrists up against Republicans, and it has generally, in my experience, not worked. So far from what we've seen out of this individual race, does it seem like you've mentioned a couple of the missteps that she's had? I didn't understand at the time what she could possibly be talking about the stopping Trump's agenda. So far, does it look like that strategy is working? Do we have any idea of the early polling or anything like that?
I think, she's doing well in polling. She's done really well in fundraising, but that's what happens when you have the backing of the party, because they can pull strings and get help for you. If they wanted to do that with a progressive person in this race, then it could be argued that they might be doing well in the polls also. But it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's the whole point about talking about who they're making endorsements for, because once you get the endorsement, your poll numbers increase, your fundraising increases, which then pushes you further in the polls and makes it seem like you have a chance of winning. So yeah, it's pretty unclear. I think nobody really thinks that Mitch McConnell is going to lose in Kentucky, but crazier things have happened.
And what about in Texas? John Cornyn is up for re-election. How are they weighing in that race?
So they recently endorsed MJ Hegar, who voted in, I believe, the 2016. She voted, I think, in 2016 as a Republican. I'm pretty sure that's the correct year. She has in the past made comments that are pretty anti-gun control. She's moved further left on that, which is also kind of a trademark of these candidates that the party tends to back, which is that oftentimes they might not actually have real convictions about the positions that they're taking, and they can kind of move with as they feel the tide is turning on certain issues. So as the country has become more unified on what to do about gun control in the wake of countless tragedies, it makes sense that she's changed her tune on that. But at the same time, there are other viable candidates there, like Cristina Ramirez, Sima Hernandez is also running, but I know Christina has been leading MJ, at least in most recent polling, and she's had a pretty impressive fundraising haul in the third quarter. Again, MJ is pretty far ahead of her on the fundraising front, but again, she's got the party backing.
Yeah, and you would expect that hypothetically, whoever they're going to back is going to do well, especially in Texas. Like you point out that Mitch McConnell's, he seems pretty safe at this point. But just in 2018, we had Ted Cruz, his race against Beto O'Rourke, and that was incredibly close. Like this seems like it could potentially flip. It always seems that way, but it really does seem like it's moving in that direction. And so it feels odd that they're coming out in this particular way. I mean, I know that. Anyway, let's move on. I've made clear what I think about that strategy. I don't think that it's a wise strategy, and I don't know how free you are to opine beyond your reporting.
No, I'd like to make a point on that though,
sure.
Which is that Cristina Ramirez was part of the backbone of people who led the organizing strategy that helped Beto almost beat Ted Cruz. So it's not like she's a nobody. She understands Texas really well. She understands how to mobilize communities that the party, frankly, hasn't necessarily had success mobilizing in past elections. So I think that it's kind of unfair for them to discount her on that point. And another point I would make is that, like you said, yeah, McConnell that's a reach seat. Texas is a place that's one of the targets that the party actually thinks they might be able to flip. And when we're spending so much time and energy and money talking about what's going to happen with the presidential election next year, it's been swept under the rug a little bit, not a lot, but that, it doesn't really matter what happens with the White House if Democrats don't take back the Senate. So it seems kind of silly for the party to be making what look like callous decisions in areas where they could actually make changes that they need to put through the legislation that they've been working on for the past 2 years.
Exactly. And look, Kayla, I've really enjoyed your coverage of the campaign so far. Keep up the great work holding these organizations accountable. And thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having me, John.
Thank you for watching this clip from the Damage Report. For more content from the show and access to TYT Network members-only exclusives, go to tyt.com/Brooke. Wait, no, it's tyt.com/John. Go to tyt.com/John to sign up.